Hello, and welcome to the training session on how to administer absentee ballots within a healthcare facility. My name is Julie Hanson. I am the Elections Manager for Scott County. Thanks for joining me today. This is a type of absentee voting in the state of Minnesota that is commonly known as HCF outreach voting. This should take approximately an hour, in addition to the 2-hour election judge certification training you have already received. This training is for a separate certification and addresses different information. After this training, you will be certified to conduct HCF outreach voting in the state of Minnesota. Your certification as an HCF outreach election judge will expire in the spring of 2022. Due to the 2020 worldwide pandemic, in the spring of 2020, the Minnesota legislature approved the ability for local election officials to train and designate employees of a healthcare facility or hospital to administer the absentee voting process known as HCF outreach voting for the 2020 state election cycle. The two state elections in 2020 are the August 11th state primary and the November 3rd state general election. If you are taking this training and are an HCF staff member, thank you so much for your willingness to ensure that our voters, your residents, are afforded the opportunity to vote. We very much appreciate you. Your role as an HCF election judge is very important. By helping with this process, you are playing an important role in protecting democracy because you are ensuring access for eligible voters residing in a healthcare facility who could not otherwise vote at the polls. You are protecting the integrity and accuracy of the elections process by helping voters complete ballots, and you are assuring privacy of voters through the outreach process. Again, thank you very much for being willing to assist in this very important function. Here's an overview of our training today. We will talk about healthcare facility outreach voting training requirements, outreach voting versus agent delivery of absentee ballots and how those are different, a definition of a healthcare facility, election judge responsibilities, outreach voting procedures. We'll have some training exercises and at the end provide you with some contact information should you need assistance. The training requirements to conduct HCF outreach voting is a two-step process. Number one, complete the 2 hours of regular election judge training before the state primary. That certification of regular election judge training expires in 24 months. Then number two, complete at least 1 hour of healthcare facility outreach voting. The county auditor or municipal clerk is the training official for both election judge and HCF outreach voting training, depending on the structure of your city or township. The training official will keep a record of training hours and categories. This record of trained election judges is different than a jurisdiction's appointed election judges. You may be on a list of trained election judges, but you might not be appointed to serve in a particular election or election cycle. For you HCF employees, for this 2020 state election cycle only as an employee of a healthcare facility, you are only required to complete the 1 hour of healthcare facility outreach voting. You do not have to complete the 2 hours of additional election judge training. However, it is available on our website. If you would care to do that, you are certainly more than welcome. Sometimes it gets confusing when we talk about the requirements that apply to healthcare facility absentee voting. There are actually two different types of HCF voting methods, and we'll go through those now. They are the healthcare facility outreach voting, which is what you're learning to facilitate now, and the healthcare facility agent delivery. There are two key differences. The healthcare facility outreach voting works with permanent healthcare facility residents. Since these residents reside in your jurisdiction, they have a right to vote in your jurisdiction. The key point is where the voter has their home. At some healthcare facilities, you will come across both types of residents. For example, in a hospital setting, a resident may only be in the hospital for 3 days, one of which being election day. They would need to vote regular absentee and may choose to have an agent deliver their ballots. Temporary residents in a healthcare facility that have a permanent residence in another precinct will instead rely on a healthcare facility agent delivery to pick up and return an absentee from their own precinct. For healthcare facility employees, you are being trained to assist the residents of your own facilities with this outreach voting type of absentee for the 2020 state election cycle. Here are a few more details about healthcare facility agent delivery type of absentee voting, just so you have it. During the 7 days preceding an election and up to 2 o'clock on election day, a healthcare facility patient may designate someone to be an agent. They do have to authorize their agent in writing. The agent will pick up and return the absentee ballot for them, and the agent must return the ballot to the clerk by 3 p.m. on election day. This can be offered to those who do not want to consider the healthcare facility their home, that they're planning to return to their home at some time, or do not want to use healthcare facility outreach voting services and would prefer to have a friend or family member assist them with their absentee ballot. It is the municipal clerk's responsibility to initiate outreach to all licensed healthcare facilities by contacting facility staff in advance of the 20-day outreach voting period to set a date and time for outreach activities. Here's a few more details regarding outreach voting. As we said, it must be administered during the 20 days before the election by the auditor or full-time clerk. And a healthcare facility would be defined as a hospital, a residential treatment center, a nursing home that's licensed to serve adults under Minnesota statutes 144A.02, or any other institution that's licensed under Minnesota statutes 144.50. This is the definition of a healthcare facility outlined in Minnesota election laws as to what a healthcare facility is for voting and election purposes. This is not something that you as a healthcare facility election judge or employee necessarily need to worry about. The clerk will only send you to places that meet these requirements. As we all know, 2020 has certainly brought extra challenges. Healthcare facility voters are extremely vulnerable to COVID-19. That's why we want to work with all healthcare facility election judges on additional training for CDC guidelines for social distancing, masks, hand washing, and sanitizing. Facilities are definitely going to be overwhelmed by the pandemic. They may need some extra assistance with follow-up calls, emails, whatever we need to do to assist you with this process. We are here for you. Here's some reminders of what you may want to consider doing or packing before you leave the house. Make sure that you dress comfortably, preferably in clothing without messages. We will talk a little bit more about that later. You might want to make sure that you remember to pack your reading glasses, any medications, the clerk's phone number, emergency information. Pack some snacks. If you're going to be there over a mealtime and meals won't be available to you, maybe you want to pack a lunch. Healthcare facility employees. You may want to prepare materials for voting activities earlier in the day or the day before. And if you can, try and reassign other job duties for that shift. Here's some information about voting supplies. You're going to need a sealed container to hold and transport the absentee envelopes that contain the voted ballots when you bring them back to us. You will need to wear a healthcare facility election judge identification badge. This should not show party affiliation. This can simply be a sticker that you stick on your shirt, whatever it is you need it to be. The forms that you need will be things like absentee ballot applications, election day voter registration applications, a precinct list of persons vouching, and ballots. We will You will be provided with a master list, which is a list of registered voters in your precinct. We would recommend that this be provided in advance to the healthcare facility with absentee applications. Then the county or cities that do their own absentee can then enter the absentee apps and print the labels for the envelopes. The envelopes will include the ballot secrecy envelope and a signature envelope, both for registered and non-registered voters. We'll give you instructions for both types of voters, an incident log, and I voted stickers to supply to the voters. As far as the health risk mitigation, election judges and healthcare facility employees conducting outreach voting activities should frequently wash and sanitize hands following the CDC hand washing guidelines, wear cloth face coverings covering nose and mouth, and frequently disinfect surfaces using CDC and EPA approved disinfectants. The use of hand sanitizer is encouraged, but please check to make sure that your hands are dry before handling any ballots. Hand sanitizer can wet and damage the ballots and cause issues for the tabulators once they're run through that. We ask you to use spacious, well-ventilated rooms. They make for the safest locations for outreach voting activities, and if at all possible, have windows and doors open to increase outdoor airflow. A tip would be to cut I voted stickers individually and spread them out on a table for people to pick up on their own rather than handing them to them. Election judges that are conducting healthcare facility outreach voting need to be trained election judges. They have to operate in teams of 2 with separate parties. They need to travel together in the same vehicle, and of course, they must have this healthcare facility training. Healthcare facility employees must have this healthcare facility training and need to confirm material pickup and return of voted ballot details with the clerk. The duties are to provide applications, issue absentee voting, provide assistance to voters, and return those ballots in a sealed container. Each voter must complete an absentee ballot application. The form can be completed before, which we recommend, or during the healthcare facility outreach. The following information must be provided on the application: the voter's name, their date of birth, their Minnesota driver's license or ID card number, or the last 4 digits of their social security number, or affirmation that the voter does not have any of these, and their residential address, as well as their signature. Speaking of the signature, the applications need to be signed by the person requesting the ballot. Power of attorney does not apply to voting. An applicant can ask for another person to sign for them in their presence, but that individual must sign their own name as well and make sure that it is dated. Please verify the voter's registration using the master list. If the voter is registered, issue registered absentee ballot materials. Voters who are not registered or whose registration status indicates challenged must complete non-registered materials. And non-registered materials would include an EDR, which means Election Day registration, voter registration application. This is a good advantage to providing absentee ballot applications in advance. Then the county or the city is able to provide the correct materials for each voter. Of course, we will provide you with some extra ballots and applications, envelopes, those types of supplies, just so you have them should you need them. As we said, unregistered applicants or challenged voters have to complete a voter registration application. When they're filling out the VRA, the voter must provide a proof of residence, and the judge must complete the official use only portion of the VRA, indicating which proof was shown. Just want to make sure that we point this out, that this is oftentimes missed. Please pay particular attention to filling out the bottom of the application. The witness will also record the proof on the signature envelope. And again, this is the most commonly missed thing on a healthcare facility envelope. Here's an abbreviated list of acceptable proof of residence. Someone could use a valid Minnesota driver's license or ID card, or the receipt for any of these, a tribal ID card containing a photo and signature, a valid registration in the same precinct under a different name or address, a notice of late registration sent by the county auditor, a voter registered in the same precinct who can confirm the voter's address with a signed oath, an employee of the residential facility who can confirm the voter's address with a signed oath, or both an acceptable photo ID and an acceptable bill that has their correct residence address. The most common proof of residence used by healthcare facility voters is a voucher. There are 2 types of vouchers: employee vouchers and registered voter vouchers. If an employee's name is on a certified list, employees may vouch for an unlimited number of residents. The employees on the list do not need to show any other ID in order to vouch for the resident of a facility. If there's no list or an employee is not on the list, an employee can demonstrate their employment at the facility. That can be accomplished by methods including an employee identification badge or a statement on facility letterhead that's signed and dated by a manager or equivalent officer of the facility. Here is an image of the voucher form itself, the choices that it gives you. If a registered voter is going to be a voucher, that would be someone who is already registered in the same precinct as the healthcare facility resident. They're the ones that can vouch for them. Voter vouchers can vouch for up to 8 residents as long as they personally know that the residents live in the particular precinct. And healthcare facility election judges can serve as a voucher if they reside in the same HCF precinct. Here is an image of the precinct list of persons vouching that you will be provided for in the paperwork that we give you. So let's talk about providing assistance to voters. 2 judges of different major parties may provide assistance to mark a ballot according to the voter's direction. There is no limit on the number of voters that they can assist, but they should always ask before helping a voter. A voter must consent to assistance with marking their ballot. And please remember to always direct questions to the voter themselves, not to other people who might be with the voter. A voter can also obtain assistance from another person instead of asking the healthcare facility election judges. An individual providing assistance in marking a ballot can now do so for an unlimited amount of voters. However, the individual selected by the voter cannot be their employer or an officer of the voters' union. Candidates are now allowed to assist in marking voters' ballots. If election judges and other individuals are providing assistance, you must not influence the voter in any way. You may only read a question and its instructions, not interpret or provide opinions. And before placing the ballot in the secrecy envelope, the voter may show it privately to an election judge to confirm that it is marked correctly according to their direction. For the primary, you do need to know and remember that a voter votes by party. So the ballot itself has 4 sections for the different parties on the ballot, front and back. They do need to stay within the same party or their votes will not count. For signature envelopes, please be sure that the voter's ballot is sealed into the secrecy envelope and that the signature envelope is properly completed. We would recommend taking glue sticks to seal envelopes. Of course, with COVID-19, we don't want anyone licking envelopes. For registered absentee voters, the healthcare facility judge would complete the voter name and voter address fields if there's no label already affixed. The voter would complete their ID number. Please make sure that it is the same as provided on the application and the voter's signature. The witness would complete the witness name, their Minnesota residential address or title if they're an official or a notary. Use title of election judge if the judge is witnessing the ballot. Provide personal residence address if a healthcare facility employee witnesses the ballot and the witness signature. Please note for the state primary, a witness is not required for registered absentee voters. We'll talk a little bit about that on the next slide. So, by the order of the court case shown on the screen for the 2020 state primary, a witness is not needed for registered absentee voters. Therefore, the witness section of the signature envelope does not have to be completed for registered voters. Non-registered absentee voters are still required to have a witness, as the witness lists on the signature envelope the documents used to register and signs that they viewed these items. We are unsure at this time of what the general election will look like. If that will be something that will continue, we will certainly let you know. Once the signature envelope is complete and signed, deposit the signature envelopes containing the marked absentee ballots into the sealed container. Please record any unusual events or problems that occurred during the outreach voting on the incident log. And those voted ballots and materials need to be delivered to us or to your clerk on the same day that they are delivered and marked. If you have unvoted ballots, so if someone were to change their mind, maybe they're no longer at the healthcare facility, or if the extras that we provide you with don't get used, you need to make sure that you return all ballots. Don't leave any ballots there or any of the prepared ballot packets. You must return unvoted ballots. They will be marked as spoiled in SVRS. If the person with the application on file wants to mail in their ballot at a later time, the returned unvoted ballot is spoiled, and we will send them an absentee ballot by mail, and we will change their absentee record accordingly. Now we're going to do some training exercises. So voter A is a voter at XYZ healthcare facility. She is unable to fill out the ballot by herself. What do you do? Well, you would politely ask the voter if she would like help in marking the ballot. Voter B was filling out the ballot and you check on him and notice he is asleep and only half done. What do? Gently wake the voter, but please do not touch, by asking, do you want to finish voting? Or ask if the voter would like help marking the ballot. You are working with voter C on filling out a voter registration card or VRA, voter registration application, and he's unable to sign his name. What do? Have the voter mark the space as best as they can. The healthcare facility election judge may wish to write the voter's name at the request of the voter. Voter D is not a registered voter and doesn't have a proof of residency. Is there any way voter D can register? Yes. Voter D can register through a voucher process, which, as we've talked about, is a registered voter in the same precinct, just as a voter registering on election day would use. The voter you are working with has a guardian. Can they still vote? Is there anything different that they have to do? It depends on the type of guardian the person has. If the voter has a guardian of the person, which is a court determination, then the voter is ineligible to vote. All other types of guardianship allow the patient to vote. Although the guardian can act as an assistant to the voter, they may not vote for the voter. Voter E is taking a long time to fill out the ballot. How long should you wait for a voter to complete the ballot? We ask you to please wait a reasonable amount of time. If the voter is unable to complete the ballot, what they have completed should be considered their completed ballot. Voter F is a temporary resident. He doesn't live in the precinct that the healthcare facility resides in. What options can you give voter F for voting? Voter F can designate an agent to work with his precinct to carry his ballot for him. He can also vote absentee by going online and requesting a ballot, or go vote in his own precinct. Requesting an absentee ballot can also, of course, be done via mail. You can certainly leave an absentee ballot application with them and ask them to send it in to us. Okay, so now we're going to go through a few things, and I want you to answer yes or no to yourself, and we will go through these answers at the end of each slide. But there are appropriate and inappropriate statements you can make while working with a voter. So kind of tell yourself yes if you think the statement is appropriate, or no if you don't. Your son has the power of attorney for you. Would you rather they vote for you? Would you like to vote for? You remember this politician, right? She's the one doing those commercials that, would you like me to read or reread the instructions? So number one, no one can vote for someone else. They can only assist to mark the ballot. Power of attorney does not apply to voting. Number two, no, please do not ask in this manner. Number three, again, no, please don't ask a question like this. And number four, absolutely, this is a great way to ask someone if they need some assistance. Would you like me to read the ballot? So, do you usually vote Republican or Democratic? You don't really want your husband to assist you, do you? Or do your grandkids go to X school district? This question involves school funding. So number five, would you like me to read the ballot? Yes, that's a great question to ask. Number six, no, we do not want to ask something like this. Number seven, again, definitely a no. And number eight is a no as well. Would you like me to read this question again? Which of these names do you like best? Is this the person that you would like to assist you with the ballot? So number nine, would you like me to read this question again? Yes, that's a great question to ask. Number 10, which of the names do you like best? No, we don't want to ask that question. And number 11, is this the person you'd like to assist you? Yes. Why would you want to ask number 11? We would want to ask to ensure that if a person is assisting them, that the voter is providing consent for that person to assist. Would you like help writing on the ballot? Do you mind if we fill out the ballot while you eat lunch? Number 12, if they would like help writing on the ballot, is a great question to ask. But number 13, no, that wouldn't be a question that we would want to ask. Next, we're going to look at some frequently asked questions. We're going to challenge your knowledge with the FAQs that the Secretary of State's office received, and then we'll go over the responses to see if we know the answers. What has changed as far as who can act as an assistant to a voter? Well, there are two recent changes. A candidate can now assist, and there's no longer a limit on the number of voters one person may assist with marking the voter's ballot. So why do you think this information is important? Have you ever come across individuals that were assisting improperly? So what's changed as far as who can act as an assistant to a voter? Well, there are two recent changes. A candidate can now assist, and there's no longer a limit on the number of voters one person may assist with marking the voter's ballot. Do you count an absentee for someone who has passed away between when they filled out their ballot and election day? If a voter has passed away before the election judges have accepted the ballot, that is rejected. What if someone wanting an absentee ballot won't sign the envelope? What do? The ballot is going to be rejected by the election judges. Can someone pick up an absentee ballot for their spouse when their spouse is in a healthcare facility? No, unless they use the agent delivery process. We did talk about that agent delivery process earlier in the training today. What if the other healthcare facility election judge doesn't show up on healthcare facility outreach day? Well, contact the clerk immediately. They will need to send an election judge replacement, train a healthcare facility election judge under the emergency guidelines, or as a last resort, it may need to be rescheduled. Who witnesses the absentee ballot? Any registered voter in Minnesota. But remember, as we've talked about for the 2020 state primary, registered voters do not need a witness. What can't a healthcare facility election judge wear to an outreach? The election judge should observe the same standards as any election judge would in a polling place, which would be refraining from wearing or advocating an election outcome. That includes wearing buttons and or t-shirts that are related to the candidate or questions on the ballot. Of course, as an employee of a municipality or the healthcare facility, there could be other policies and procedures in place that prohibit wearing of certain items as well. When there is a large room used for the outreach, how do you maintain privacy of each voter? You know, this is always a challenge. You just have to do the best that you can to maintain the privacy of each voter. This may mean setting up a table across the room from where the rest of the voters are waiting. What happens when you run out of ballots or other materials on outreach day? They should contact the clerk immediately and arrange for the delivery of more ballots. As I said previously, we do provide a few extra with non-registered materials. Please utilize those first and then let the clerk know if In your work as a healthcare facility election judge, you'll need to be familiar with several forms. For example, a voter registration card or application, an absentee application, and absentee signature envelopes. We will make sure that when your supplies are delivered or when you pick them up, either from us or from your municipal clerk, that you become familiar with these forms, that you're confident on outreach day to be able to perform the duties of a healthcare facility judge. If you have questions about this training or anything else, please reach out to your local clerk first. Should you need to contact the county, please feel free to call the Elections Department at 952-496-8560 or email scott@co.mn.us. Here's the contact information for the Elections Division of the Minnesota Secretary of State's office. It's email, website, and telephone number should you need it. I do encourage you to look on their website. They have a lot of great information and training available directly there. Thank you again for your willingness to become certified as a healthcare facility election judge. We could